No crew, no devil fruit, just a sword, pure badassery, and an epic beard that I'm kinda jealous of. But both the inspiration and origin of Mihawk goes really, really deep. From the most famous vampire of all time, No Not You Edward, to a Catholic Romanian swordsman who had a dark truth to his family, today we're gonna explore the sinister inspirations to Mihawk to predict what's about to happen to him in the story. But as always, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for consistent One Piece theories. Up until now, Mihawk's been a total mystery, and honestly, there's not that much to say about him. There's not that much we know about him. Sure, he has the world's strongest swordsman title and he's dueled with Shanks, but as one example, we haven't even seen those duels with Shanks. We also know that he was a former warlord of the sea, making him have a unique peace treaty with the world government. As far as his origins go, one of the most popular theories and options is that he is the son of Rayleigh and Shaggy. And I'm sure this has crossed your mind before. A lot of One Piece fans come to the same conclusion since they're reading the same story, but the earliest post I saw about this was on Tumblr in 2017. The theory goes that Shaggy quit being a pirate 42 years ago, which is actually 1 year before Mihawk was born. This could be a coincidence, it could not, but let's just at least keep this in mind. Now, in the original text where Luffy meets Shaggy, she calls Rayleigh Uchi no Hito, which translates to person of my house. This may seem a little vague, but when a woman says person of my house, they are referring to their husband. Now, you can kind of see the foundation that we're laying down here. Shaggy quit being a pirate 42 years ago, then 1 year later had Mihawk. The father of Mihawk would be the person of her house, the husband, Rayleigh. But wait, there's more. So the name Dracula Mihawk seems to imply that Mihawk is connected to Dracula, which is the most famous vampire of all time. Now, when we're talking about the weaknesses of a vampire, we have to understand that they are dark and usually evil beings, so they hate purity. Now, coincidentally, Rayleigh's name is Silver's Rayleigh, and silver is one of those items of purity that absolutely destroy and counter vampires. So I do think it's ironic how Silver's Rayleigh would be the counter to his own son. Oh yeah, by the way, Rayleigh and Mihawk are swordsmen. Now, that theory goes way deeper than what I presented to you, so if you're interested in reading more, the link will be in the description. So seeing how there's already theories on the origins of Mihawk, I thought it'd be a great idea to show you guys my take on the origins of Mihawk. Now, in the past, the popular belief of Luffy's inspiration was Sun Wukong, a monkey king from Chinese mythology. Now, of course, there are similarities between Luffy and Sun Wukong, but that doesn't mean that Luffy is based on only Sun Wukong. And one day I discovered that Sun Wukong was actually based on the Hindu monkey god Hanuman. And I found that to be very compelling because there's a lot of traits Hanuman can apply to Luffy but can't apply to Sun Wukong. For an example, Hanuman tried eating the sun thinking it was a fruit, and Hanuman himself is actually the son of the Lord of the Winds. This would imply that Dragon himself is the Lord of the Winds, and if you're interested in that topic, I have a video about that, should be at the top of the screen. But the reason I'm bringing up this Luffy thing is because in chapter 1048, Luffy did the attack that would end up defeating Kaido called Bajrang Gun, and Bajrang is another name for the monkey god Hanuman. But going even further than that, One Piece Road to Laugh Tale Volume Series 4 shows Oda's author notes calling Luffy monkey god Hanuman.
Now, why does this matter? What does it matter that Luffy's based on Hanuman? What does this have to do with Mihawk?
It's simple. I'm proving to you how over and over again when Oda goes to create a One Piece character, he gets two real-life figures and mixes them together. So with Luffy, it's Sun Wukong and Hanuman, and for Mihawk, it's going to be Count Dracula and Vlad the Impaler. Now, there's a lot of info we're about to jump into, and it took forever to collect, so if you want to support the channel, hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell for consistent One Piece theories. The first and obvious inspiration of Mihawk is how he's definitely based on Count Dracula. Now, in the real world, Count Dracula is based on a centuries-old vampire that starred in many movies and TV shows. Dracul and Dracula sound and are spelled very similar, and there's actually a reason for that. In the Japanese Raws of One Piece, Mihawk's name is actually written as Dracula, not Dracul. And the sad part about that is that there's no real reason why Viz, the English translations for One Piece, chose to use Dracul instead of Dracula. And sure, you could speculate it had to do with copyright infringement or something like that, but again, that's just speculation. And this isn't the first time that Viz has had issues with the names in the manga. For an example, they still use the name Zolo. So my point here is that it's completely fair to say that his actual name is Dracula Mihawk, which actually does have some ties to Count Dracula himself. One obvious clue to me is how they dress almost the exact same way. Count Dracula and Dracula Mihawk having the same attire cannot be a coincidence. Another similarity is how Count Dracula's castle looks very similar to Mihawk's castle on Kar Raigana Island. Seeing how there's obvious clues that Mihawk is based on Count Dracula, I wonder if the niche facts about Count Dracula could apply to Mihawk. For an example, Count Dracula was known as the undead, meaning that this dude was not dying anytime soon. I know One Piece fans like to tie the concept of his ring eyes to immortality, but that's flawed considering all the characters that possess these ring eyes off and on. But that doesn't mean I don't think that Mihawk could be long living or immortal, I just think that there's other ways to do so. One example is Dr. Kureha. She is 141 years old and she even knows about the Will of D and Gold D Roger. The probability that she crossed Mihawk's path and increased his lifespan is actually a lot higher than you think, given that it's implied she's a former pirate. So with the name Count Dracula and Dracula Mihawk, it's possible that he is undead and he was altered when he met Dr. Kureha. Now I know there's other means of extending your lifespan or making you immortal, such as the Ope Ope no Mi, but I personally don't think the story is going in the direction that Mihawk had that operation done on him. I've also considered the idea that Mihawk is a vampire, but then that kind of leads me into the territory that he has a devil fruit, which yet again in my opinion isn't really the vibe in the direction I see Oda going with and would actually take away from Mihawk's power and skill in swordsmanship. Now the second inspiration I see for Mihawk is Vlad the Impaler. Vlad the Impaler was one of the most important rulers in Wallachian history and a national hero of Romania. Now it's important to know that Count Dracula is based on Vlad the Impaler, which should remind you about how I said earlier that Sun Wukong is based on Hanuman. So I see a trend here. When Oda wants to create a One Piece character, he gets the popular notable figure to inspire them. Then he looks at those popular figures, figures out their inspiration, and adds them to the mix as well. Now one interesting detail about Vlad the Impaler is actually kind of dark. It's how his father and brother were both killed. Now this is because Vlad's father was overthrown by local warlords that decided to kill the two family members. Now this actually reminds me of Doflamingo, a former celestial dragon who killed his own father and brother. Now the two stories are not the same because, as I said, Vlad didn't kill his father and brother, but Doflamingo did. But I bring this up because of a shocking discovery I made that actually inspired me to make this video in the first place. In Romanian language, where Count Dracula comes from, son of Dracula derives from the Latin word Draco, which translates to the English word dragon. This could imply that at some step of the way, Mihawk was a former world noble or celestial dragon. And this is not out of the realm of possibility because we've already had warlords like Doflamingo that were former celestial dragons. So if anything, Oda could be trying to draw a parallel between Doflamingo and Mihawk that is not obvious to us yet. But at least we can infer and predict that both Mihawk and Doflamingo are endgame characters. Now remember how I said that Doflamingo is a former celestial dragon that killed his father and brother? With Vlad the Impaler inspiring Mihawk, this would imply that Mihawk is a former celestial dragon that had his father and brother killed by enemies, creating a unique similarity between Doflamingo and Mihawk. One other detail we definitely have to look at is actually the drawings of the 7 warlords as children. Looking at Mihawk's depiction, it's very obvious that his childhood was rough to say the least. And knowing Oda's writing style, knowing how Oda foreshadows things, I'm not going to ignore how he decided to draw Mihawk like that. I also want to point out how in many of the drawings of Vlad the Impaler and the people around him, they are shown holding and using crucifixes, or in other words, religious crosses. This would imply why a dark person like Dracula Mihawk would still wear something people depict as pure, a crucifix. And the interesting part about that is that the celestial dragons live in the Holy Land and call themselves gods. So Mihawk wearing this cross, Mihawk wearing this crucifix could be a hint, it could be a clue to show that he is a former celestial dragon. And if that's true, that yet again solidifies how when Oda creates an important One Piece character, he takes 2 important figures and mixes them together. I can definitely see the celestial dragon Mihawk having a rough childhood because his royalty father and brother were murdered by enemies. This would lead Mihawk into isolation and not want to interact with anyone in the world and just remain in the shadows, up until he decided to live up to the Dracula name by extending his lifespan by meeting someone like Dr. Kureha. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more One Piece theories. If you're interested on the man with the burn scar that's traveling through the One Piece fandom, I have a video about it to my side. Everyone have a nice day. Peace.